Shalom, everybody. Welcome back. We're continuing with where we left off in Reb Noson's discourse and Likutey Halakhot, section Orach Chaim, Hoda'ah, the laws of giving thanks, discourse number 6. We're mamash towards the very end of paragraph 24. Finally, we've been over a year on this paragraph. Reb Noson goes in depth to explain the concept of the keter and the bashing into the keter and the bounce back and the repercussions and the benefits. And he's tied everything as related to Yaakov's dream in Parashat Vayetze. We are now holding where where Yaakov Avinu is now finishing up the conditions to his neder. There's two verses in the Torah, chapter 28, verses 20 and 21, where Yaakov Avinu lists the conditions of the neder. Right, just to recap, verse 20 reads, Vayidar Yaakov neder lemor, and Jacob pronounced neder the neder, that's the literal translation, saying the following, Im Elokim imadi, if the Lord will be with me, Ushmarani b'derech hazeh, and he'll protect me on this pathway, Asher lechem, which I'm walking upon, V'natani lechem lechol u'begid l'bosh, and he gives me bread to eat and a garment to wear. All that we explained in last class. Now this week, this pasuk now that we're holding now, V'shavti v'shalom el beit avi, and I will return peacefully to the house of my father. V'yashem li Elokim, and Hashem will be my Lord. Just before we go into this, we're to remind everybody and ourselves that Reb Noson is connecting what Yaakov Avinu is saying to the challenges of life of a daily Jew, and that this is what's expected to happen. This is the goal. So when Yaakov is making a neder, he's saying with the power of the neder, which we said in the last class, is the idea of reaching the 50th gate. And when a person strives to the 50th gate, which is the idea of the keter, meaning a person realizes that to overcome the challenges and the battles that he's facing in life, he's going to need a strength, a power, force, access, which is way above his level, and in fact is the maximum that he can connect to. So then the product is all of these stages take place. And he said that the activating part is the simcha, is doing mitzvot with joy. And then these are now the repercussions of doing the mitzvot with joy. And again, Reb Noson says this applies to every Jew. At every level that they're going through, they can see these things in their life. So now, in this verse, he's finalizing the goals. In other words, what finally does doing the mitzvot b'simcha lead to? And it's like Yaakov is summarizing, and when Hashem does what he told me in the dream while I was sleeping in the ladder. And Yaakov is going over the practical points that come out of what the vision of the dream was giving to him. What was the idea of the ladder? And angels going up and angels going down. And then what Hashem said to him, of all the conditions, okay? So now he's bringing down Yaakov Avinu in these two verses, the practical ramifications. So finally, the end goal, believe it or not, at least on our level, on a human being's level, that he knows that he's now gotten somewhere, is in this verse. The verse reads, again, the Yaakov is saying, and Hashem, as Hashem told me, V'shavti v'shalom el beit avi, and I will return peacefully to the house of my father. So just take a look at Rashi. V'shavti, and I will return, kumo she'amar li, like Hashem told me in the dream. V'shivoticha el hadama, you have nothing to fear, Yaakov, because I will bring you back to the land. The land is referring to the Holy Land. So in the verse when it says the house of my father, where's the house of my father Yitzhak located? In Eretz Yisrael, in Beersheba. Okay? V'shalom, shalem minachet, complete from sin. In other words, not tainted and dented with sin. Shelo elmad miderech Lavan, I shouldn't learn from the ways of Lavan. That's the idea of shalom, peaceful. It also means complete. V'yashem li Elokim, and Hashem will be my Lord. Shachul shmo alai mitchila ve'ad sof, that Hashem's name should rest upon him from beginning to end. Sheli matzeh psul b'zari, there should be no blemish in my offspring, of my 12 sons that he's going to have. Right? Kumo shenemar asher dibarti lecha, Like it says that Hashem told Avraham, like I told to you, and Hashem promised this promise to Avraham, that like I said to you, that I will be with your offspring. These are the wordings of the promise that Hashem made to Avraham Avinu. It's chapter 17, verse 7, that Hashem told Avraham, I will be to you a Lord, and to your offspring after you. So zaracha, offspring, means miyuchas, those who have proper lineage. There's no any blemish. So it has to be referring to Yaakov, because Yitzchak had Esav, and Avraham himself had Ishmael. So it had to be the channel of Avraham, Yitzchak to Yaakov. Okay? So now, Reb Noson is going to say something unbelievable what he's saying here. This is something which we experience a lot in life. When we're faced with a challenge or a difficult situation, the biggest problem, the biggest difficulty in the challenge is they take away your sechel. You have no intellect to comprehend what's going on. That's why you freeze. You're in shock mode, in traumatic mode, because you don't know how to deal with the situation. You don't know how to deal with it. And you don't know how to absorb it, how to internalize it. You don't know how it fits in the picture of what's happening in life. And the biggest consolation is when they show you from heaven clarity in what you're going through. You know why this is happening. And Hashem shows you, gives like a glimpse of clarity. Wow, now I understand why this is happening to me. Now I understand why this happened to me. Clarity is the biggest consolation. That's what we always ask, people are when they're stuck. They say, Hashem, just show me that you love me. How do you show me that you love me? By just giving me clarity to accept and understand that this is part of the picture. Normally, the test, we're expected to accept the situations with emunah, blind faith. Yes, that's why the test is happening, to see what you do when you're being tested. Do you run to emunah, or do you start crashing because you cannot internalize and intellectualize what's happening? That's the test. It's true. They take away your brain, and then your test is how much are you going to turn into the emunah mode to accept what's happening and accepting it with simcha. And by doing the right thing, then afterwards they eventually shine to you that intellect and clarification, clarifying why you went through what you went through. So this is hinted to in what Yaakov Avinu is finalizing here. So take a look as Reb Noson explains it. Veshavti v'shalom el beit avi, and I will return in peace to the house of my father. So like Rashi said, the house of his father is Yitzchak's house, which is located in Eretz Yisrael. So in other words, and I shall return in peace to the land of Israel, the Holy Land, which is the house of my father. Look how Reb Noson opens this up. Av bechokhmah. There's a concept in the Kabbalah. You have what's called partsufim. These are images of collected levels of the 10 sfirot. The two that remain the same are chokhmah and bina. You have 10 sfirot. Okay, chokhmah, bina, da'at, netzach, hod, yesod, chesed, gvur, tiferet. Sorry, chesed, gvur, tiferet, netzach, hod, yesod, malchut. Okay, or you have keter, chokhmah, bina. The keter stays the keter. Chokhmah becomes called Abba, and Bina becomes called Ima, mother, father and mother. Then you have Zer Anpin, the son. He's called Zer Anpin. He's made up of the lowest, the under Abba and Ima, the next 6 sfirot, and the last sfira, Malchut, is called Nukva, the wife of the son, the wife of Zer Anpin. These are what's called Partsufim. So Av is called Chokhmah, Ima is called Bina. Av is called Chokhmah because, again, the father of a person is his intellect. In other words, we teach a person knowledge, wisdom, especially the wisdom of the Torah. And it's this wisdom of the Torah that guides a person in life like a father. The idea of a father, he has the mitzvah of chinuch, obligation to educate his sons on the proper way. That's why it's a disaster when there's a divorce, God forbid, or an orphan, and he has no actual father to guide him. In cases where the mother has the kids also in a divorce, and the father's detached, it's terrible because they have no proper father. Could be also sometimes the father wasn't a father, so it doesn't help. But ideally, the role of a father is to be a role model, period. Okay? So the Torah is also, the wisdom of the Torah, Chokhmah, is like a father, Abba, Av. Okay? So Reb Noson's rewording the verse, re-expressing it, re-showing us what it's saying here. V'shavti v'shalom el beit avi. And I will return in peace to the house of wisdom. What does that mean? V'shavti daika. Reb Noson, after he says that Abba is wisdom, it fits in perfectly why the verse says, and I will return. I will return to the house of wisdom. What in the world is going on? What is he saying here? Shemikol makom sheyesham. That from any place that a Jew is there, is thrown to, is cast away in those places where there's no chokhmah, there's no understanding, there's no grasp of what's happening. Yashuv b'shalom el hasechel v'hachokhmah. The person will come back in peace to the intellect and understanding. Meaning, wherever he's been thrown to in his life, he'll be able, like a yo-yo, to reconnect it to the wisdom of the Torah. Meaning, to find relevance, understanding, symbolism, meaning in what he's going through as part of the big picture of his life. And then, wow, this makes so much sense. Because the greatest consolation in life, Ibn Ahmad says this in many places, the greatest consolation in life is to have understanding of what you're going through. But the only way to get to it is you have to jump in, you have to accept be'emunah. You can't expect to understand everything at front, that's stage one. You have to go through many tests of emunah, many tests of commitment that Hashem is always testing a person to see how committed he is. So even if they take away the brain and the mind power, he's still holding on, he's still committed, he's still attached, he's still connected, he's still dedicated. So then, after passing those tests, they show him the awareness of what he's going through. And for sure by that, there's endless levels. But once a person reaches some level of understanding that activates a consolation, it's a big time consolation. A person looks back and he sees that it was all worth it. To get to this level of understanding that I have now, I'm not willing to exchange it for anything. Not to say, let's go back to how it was back then. Look where you are now. Look how much you've advanced now. Look how many things have developed in your life, in your awareness of Hashem, in your level of emunah, your level of Torah capacity, your level of understanding. You have such depth now, much greater than before, because of what you went through in life. So it's all worth it. But that's the goal. The goal is always to come back to Chokhmah. Because again, this connects with the ultimate purpose of creation that the Zohar says. The Zohar says the purpose of creation is begin the yishtemod'in le. Hashem created the world so that He, Hashem, should be made known. Yishtemod'in, da'at. He should be made known. There should be awareness of Hashem in the world. Awareness is with the mind. Hashem doesn't want awareness to an idiot or to an insect or a bug that has no idea what's flying, technically. Who knows what they have. But the idea is that I should be filled with an awareness, a da'at. That's what Hashem created the world. That with the brain that He gave us to recognize Hashem. Okay, that's no longer emunah mode. That's understanding mode. That's the goal. To get to it though, you have to be flung to the far corners of the universe or whatever, however you want to express it. Whatever you're going through in life, the challenge is that they just throw you in a black zone, in a dark zone, in a limbo zone, in a messed up frenzy world that you don't know what's cooking, what's happening. And yet from there, you hold on to come back eventually to the Chokhmah. So again, Reb Noson inside. V'shavti daika, shemikol makom sheyeh sham, yashuv b'shalom el hasechel v'hachokhmah. You should come back in peace. Like Rashi says, complete. You shouldn't be dented from any sin, any blemishes. Even if you went through what you went through, you can come back in peace, whole, to the sech and the chokhmah, because you hold on. After all the ups and downs, even if you do fall chas v'shalom, you do fall to doing terrible things, but you regret and you want to come back to Hashem, so Hashem allows you to come back, in peace, in one whole piece. To where? To the chokhmah. That now you have clarity of what you went through afterwards. Wow, that's the meaning of what I was going through. Now I understand how Hashem was orchestrating everything so carefully, and this is what came out. Unbelievable. Okay? And this is what's reflected in the verse the house of my father. Now, side point, it's interesting. Rashi says Beit Avi as Admatcha, your land, the land of Israel. The land of Israel is called the house of Chokhmah, Beit Abba. That's what Rashi says. Reb Noson saying Abba is Bechokhmah. So Beit Abba, Rashi says Admatecha. It's an indicator here that the greatest place in the world where a person can have this experience of having internalized and understanding intellectually the meaning of what they're going through in life, there's no greater place for this in the world like in Eretz Yisrael. Which is why, again, like Rabbi Nachman stressed, it's so important that every Jew eventually make it to come and live in Eretz Yisrael, B'ezrat Hashem. Because what you gain here is much, much greater than you can get anywhere else in the world with all the money and the riches and whatever. The greatest gain is in the Holy Land, in this area especially. Like the Gemara says, Avira, the Ara Yisrael Machkim, the air of the Holy Land makes wise. And it fits in perfectly with how Rashi explains the word Beit Avi, and how Reb Noson explains Beit Abba as Av Bechokhmah, which is a known term in the Kabbalah. So now he says, where do I get cast to in order to be tested to come back to the house of wisdom? Hen kesheyuchrach lered lemata lebichinat hechalei atmurot, whether I am forced to go down all the way down in my life at a beginning point to the level, the domain called it exchanged chambers, where everything is totally mixed up. Falseness with truth, light with darkness, purity of impurity, holy, unholy. Everything is just mixed up. That's the challenge of this world. And a person goes down all the way there, and his goal is to clarify from there holy sparks which are trapped there. And this is done, like Rabbi Nachman teaches, by doing mitzvot b'simcha. But when you're being tested in this area, again, they take away your da'at. Your da'at is removed. You don't have the da'at on you. It's taken away. Okay? Okay? Until you succeed getting out of there. Like we said, by doing mitzvot with joy, because you have no idea what in the world is happening. So until you eventually come out and you return to the sechel, which was the Vishavti b'shalom el Beit Avi, I'll come back in peace to the house of wisdom. Okay? Or whether that's going from up, down. That you were in a certain level when you began and they threw you down. And your job is to get out of that. That's the initial level. And then there's the next levels where now you're going from where you are upwards. You've been exposed to a light thanks to passing tests like this where you work to be besimcha. And by being besimcha, you're able to elevate holy sparks from the exchange chambers, which was down. And now you're going upwards with that energy. And then you go upwards, like super up. And whether now you reach the level where your mind is racing to pursue the infinite light, which is the clarity that you're looking for in your life, which is the idea of redifa that's quoted from the Zohar, of running the mind, the tendency, the normal nature of a mind is to run towards light. Where a person sees there's clarity, light shining, he runs to it. The mind runs to it. But the danger is that if he keeps on running to it, he'll disappear, he'll disintegrate. It's too intense. So he needs to also be pushed back. And the pushback also involves removing the brain, removing the sechel. Something unexpected happens to push back a person. So therefore, when that's happening and he's going up, lo yaharos, he shouldn't run too fast and, God forbid, cause an expiration and a burning out. Chas v'shalom, God forbid. Rak yashuv alidei tikun ha-mesader v'miyashev b'shalom el ha-sechel. Rather, he should come back to the sechel, but through something else now. Through rectification of the settling and organization of the mind, which happens by the keter. When the keter sees a person is going up too high, he's having a spiritual high, they push him back. And the pushback he takes properly, allowing for the keter to settle and organize the mind, so that then the mind can be able to receive the light within it while being pushed back. The pushback is to put the person in waiting mode. The waiting mode allows for the keter to settle the person's mind, because it's all mumbled when he's exposed to a big light and he's running towards it. So now we need to settle the mind. B'shalom. When that's done, the person then also perceives the infinite light, which is the clarity he needs all along in life to do what he has to do. So that's also considered coming back peacefully to the intellect, but in the opposite direction, going upwards. Okay? Ad sheyasig, like we said now, ad sheyasig Orach ein sof bibchinat mati v'la mati v'chule kanizka le'el. Until a person perceives the infinite light, but in the format called reaching and not reaching is mentioned above. Wow. So now, Reb Noson completes the verse, because the verse finally ends in the conditions of the neder. Again, the beginning of the verse read, V'shavti v'shalom el beit avi, and I will return peacefully to the house of my father. V'haya Hashem li lelokim, and Hashem will be my Lord. This is amazing what he says here. Everything's amazing. But look how Reb Noson says it, and then we see what the Midrash says to add to what he's saying. V'haya Hashem li lelokim, and Hashem will be my Lord. Okay, Rashi said that Hashem's name should be over me from beginning to end. That means, whatever situation I've been thrown in, whether Rachamim or Din, which is Hashem and Elokim, I can find Hashem's awareness from beginning to end. Nothing pushed me back. Everything was a test, but I finally made it in peace. And the result is, when you come to the intellect, the goal is that Hashem should be my Lord, that Hashem's presence is everywhere. Ki elu hasagot, because these perceptions of intellect, of perceiving God, after being tested and doing the right thing in the test, the gift of the perceptions that you have is the main way to draw Hashem's godliness upon you. Okay? So now, the Midrash adds a dimension on these words, and then it fits in so perfectly with what Rabbi Nachman has been saying all along in lesson 24, Likutey Moharan, and that Reb Noson is building on. The Midrash says, V'haya. Yaakov could have said Vayehi. He said, and Hashem will be my Lord. V'haya, and Hashem will be. V'haya. V'haya, the Midrash says, is a language of simcha, because it has a hey at the end. V'haya, it's upwards, so it's a simcha term. And the Midrash says, Hashem said to Yaakov, you used a happy term to establish my lordship upon you and your descendants. I promise you that I will use the same word for any time I give blessings. So the Midrash brings like 4 psukim, 4 verses from Amos, Yeshayahu, and other books, showing that Hashem, in his prophecies of being good, bestowing good, Hashem also used the term V'haya, because Yaakov did. In our context, V'haya connotes simcha. And this is the key for everything to happen. The way for everything to happen in life is you have to have simcha in the beginning. To activate this, that you eventually get to the intellect, when the goal of that is Hashem li lelokim, that Hashem should be my Lord, that I can draw now godliness wherever I'm holding. Okay? That, the key, the prerequisite starts with V'haya, which is Lashon Simcha. That a Jew is able to maintain, manage, work on being besimcha in the darkest, most difficult situations, where he has to resort to anything to wake up happiness, such as telling jokes, music, nigunim, finding his good points, being encouraged, working on himself, trying to be positive with whatever he can, even though he can't. He's so traumatized and panic-stricken from his situation, which is just crazy and above his capacity of his intellect. Yet he works on being besimcha. So the end result is Hashem li lelokim, because it starts with V'haya. And in this, Reb Noson concludes the condition of the neder, as if to say this is the goal of all life. The goal of life is V'shavti b'shalom el beit avi, v'haya Hashem lelokim. In other words, the goal is to perceive God, okay, and the goal of the perception you have of God is that now you can draw upon yourself godliness. His godliness is drawn upon you, where you feel Hashem everywhere in your life, and you're totally nullified to Hashem. Hashem li lelokim, He's my Lord. I'm under His control 100%. I don't have any tendencies outside of Hashem. I don't eat because I just want to eat and enjoy the chocolate bar. I'm eating just to fulfill the will of Hashem. That's an amazing goal. I want that. I'm not holding there. I want to get there. The way to get there is to have the intellect activated, where you see things so clearly and there's no room for you to act folly and everything. And to come to that is through the simcha, through all the challenges. Because the challenge is V'shavti b'shalom el beit avi, to eventually come to internalize intellectually. But for that to happen, it doesn't happen by just opening books and studying and studying and studying and studying. No, it happens by being tested, by throwing, like a ping pong, being thrown ups and downs, down to the exchange chambers, or up, going upwards to perceive the light, and then being pushed back. Whether this or whether that, being able to accept the situation, holding on with emuna and simcha, and then as a result coming back to Beit Avi, the house of my father of Chokhmah, through peacefully through this challenge. Okay, we'll continue with Hashem next class. And if you've been liking these classes, they're all based on this discourse of Reb Noson is based on Likutey Moharan, lesson 24. If you would like to really personalize, internalize the life-changing healing therapy, that's what we call it in Rabbi Nachman's teachings, especially in this lesson 24, you can go to lesson 24, that's lesson and the numbers 24, Breslov Therapy, BRESLOV therapy.com. And like we always say, these classes require a lot of preparation, and then the work in recording, and then uploading, and then spreading on social media, and then the follow-up with people from all over the world, asking questions and connecting to these lessons. It's a full-time job, so your support is appreciated. You can send your support at donate.breslovtherapy.com. Thank you so much, and have an amazing week and an amazing Chanukah B'ezrat Hashem.